The problem that I am in love with right now is helping people find their words to market their business. Okay, I don't care if you're a commercial insurance agent, or if you're a muffler shop, or you're a healthcare agency. Uh, Everybody struggles with this, in my humble opinion.
Like, we've created some really awesome marketing slicks that are 100% in my tone.
Yep.
Based off of just uploading everything into 4.0 and then giving it the prompts to do that. And then all we have to do is take it and put it into Canva or Publisher or whatever we're using for our graphics at that time, brand it, and we've got a really powerful piece of marketing material that tells you exactly what you can expect if that's what your problem is.
Most people, when they talk about their business, they talk about, look at me. Here's how many years I've been in business. Here's how many square feet. Here's how many employees. Here's how many collective years of experience we have, right? You hear that 130 years of experience and all this stuff. And what they fail to miss is, like, what is the problem that they're solving? What's in it for the customer? You know, in a few seconds, he's able to generate content for his LinkedIn page, for his social, his Facebook page, for his blog. It's incredible. And it's like, wow, this guy, he gets it. And it's so easy. Whereas, ChatGPT, the plus is like $20 a month. Our software is $15.99 a month. And it includes all the latest features, including ChatGPT 4.0.
Anytime in my life that I've had a problem, and I think that the person who can solve that problem is who I'm talking to, I simply want to be heard. I want them to hear my problem. That's the lifeline I'm looking for.
When I get those emails that require, I look at it and I say, man, that's got to take me 20 minutes to respond to that thing, right? And we built that into StoryMaker too. We have an email responder. You just take the message and then you give it a prompt inside. It says, respond yes to this. And it'll, with your tone of voice, talking about it's speaking on your business behalf because it knows you, right, in the history, and it spits it out and it puts it in an archive that you can use that.
If you have the stories you can tell, that's way more important than features and benefits, because if you don't have the human connection first, you can forget the professional. Nobody's going to do business with somebody they don't like.
Most people are trying to avoid a tragic ending, whatever that is, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their personal life. They don't want to fail, right? How can you bring them to more success, to more favorable outcomes? I had this database of my business and this framework of a story. It sends it to ChatGPT, brings it back, flows it through our framework, and created this 30-second pitch. And as I'm reading it out loud, I could not believe like what had just happened. I didn't have to write a prompt. I just hit make my story. And everybody on the call was like, what just happened? This was amazing. Generative AI is as good as machine learning is. You still have to, I think, make it authentic, make it yourself, and add that little extra in there.
I think ChatGPT and what's going on with generative AI right now is probably the biggest transformation of tech since the internet itself, in my opinion. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today we have got a really cool guest who I have more in common than I realized when we booked this thing, Jim Matuga. And we're going to talk about what his company does to help you tell the stories about what you do as agencies and producers by leveraging AI and a huge database of content that you've already created to get that dialed in as quickly as possible so that you can get your message out and turn that into conversions and ultimately sales. So I think it's going to be a good one. I can tell conversation's been lively already because he's in Morgantown, West Virginia. And if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you've heard me tell you I have burnt a couch or two on the front porch back in the day. And that's only when we weren't having keg parties. So anyhow, what's up, Jim?
David, great to be here with you, man.
Yes, sir. So caught me off guard with the Morgantown deal, but I'm always love when I get to talk to people from West Virginia. I actually spoke at the Independent Insurance Agents conference for West Virginia last fall at the Greenbrier. And that was the first time I had ever been to the Greenbrier. And I don't know that you can prepare somebody for what they walk into when they go there. It's like, you walk in and immediately dial things back like 50 years in time to what I don't necessarily think it's like the same general resort area as like you saw in Dirty Dancing, but it kind of has that vibe to it with maybe a little bit of The Shining mixed in.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's America's resort, the Greenbrier. It's one of our crown jewels here in West Virginia. So
yeah, absolutely.
You got to experience that.
It was, well, you know what? My favorite part was the fact that it was the fall, which is something we don't get here in Florida. So I was there in the middle of October last year. color wasn't quite at the peak, but it was enough to where, I flew into Charleston and it's still a nice drive. I didn't take, the easy way. I went down the back roads,
Yeah,
just so I could do West Virginia the way that it needed to be. And
absolutely.
I got out and took pictures and everything along the way. It was good to be back. I don't ever get back there as much as I'd like to. And I think a lot of people have preconceived notions of what to expect from West Virginia, kind of like when I lived in Alabama. I think they think everybody in Alabama is a redneck, and that couldn't be further from the truth based on my experience of living in
Yeah.
Birmingham. But with West Virginia, it's one of the most beautiful nature scenes on the entire East Coast, and especially that drive when you're going through
Mm,
by the New River and the Gully River and all of that
absolutely.
stuff in October, man. It made me homesick a little bit for the time that I spent there.
That's why we call it almost heaven.
It is, man. It's probably the closest thing on earth that you can get to it. So before we get ramped up in the content discussion, why don't you give everybody a little bit of your backstory and how you got to where we are right now, and then we'll jump in and talk.
Yeah, I'd love to, David. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jim Matuga. My company is Interaction Media. We're a marketing agency. I started it back in 2011. And when I started the agency, it was kind of a culmination. I graduated from West Virginia University with a degree in advertising and from the journalism school back in 1988. And I always wanted to have my own agency. But I ended up working for a bunch of different media companies, primarily newspaper, radio, television, cable. And every time I took a promotion or got a pay raise, it took me further from my dream of owning my own agency. And in 2011, I had this epiphany that I had to do it now or never. And so I jumped off the cliff, quit my job, and started Interaction Media. It was just myself with an iMac. You remember the iMacs back in those days?
Oh yeah.
And I bought it used off of Craigslist. I sat at my kitchen table and started my company. And what I wanted to do is take the love that I have of telling compelling stories and also the passion that I have for helping small business and entrepreneurs. I'm a salesperson by nature, so I love what you're doing with killing commercial and trying to equip people. But I found a void in the marketplace where most business people don't know how to connect with their customers. They communicate. Everybody communicates, but very
Yeah, but
few
it's
connect.
features and benefits, man. That's it. Like when you go out and sell, you focus on what your product is. And very many, in my experience, anyhow, that's
Mm,
the first place they miss. They don't ever
yeah.
take the time to identify the actual problem that needs to be
Yes.
solved. It's, hey, this is selfish. This is about me, when it should never be about you when you're in that
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. Years ago, I had a mentor that said, when you meet with somebody, whether it's as a prospective client or just somebody at a networking event, on their forehead is tattooed with them. You've heard that before. What's in it for me? And understanding what's in it for the customer, right? Is understanding, I think, the key to unlock the magic, right? And so I began this process back in 2011 of trying to identify the things that I believed in story and creating a story arc and a way to tell a compelling marketing narrative story. And it begins with the hero is the customer, not you. Most people, when they talk about their business, they talk about, look at me. Here's how many years I've been in business. Here's how many square feet. Here's how many employees. Here's how many collective years of experience we have, right? You hear that 130 years of experience and all this stuff. And what they fail to miss is like, what is the problem that they're solving? What's in it for the customer, right?
Well, the other piece of that is like, why are we regurgitating that stuff? You're already in front of the person.
Yeah.
Like they obviously buy into you. Just let's get to the brass tacks of what you really are there for. And
Yeah.
I think that listening is something that is a lost art in
Mm,
the sales process, because
yes.
so many times people listen with the intent to respond as opposed to listening with the intent to understand. And,
Yeah.
you can throw all kinds of percentages and stuff out, like you should only talk 25% of the time and let your prospect talk 75 or whatever else. But it all boils down to shut up and listen to what this person's telling you.
Mm,
Sales is
mm,
difficult because we
mm.
make it difficult. We
Yeah.
we put ourselves in a position where we literally need to get out of our own way, when if you just sit and listen, that person is going to give you the roadmap to how you get the deal done.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes when you're just listening to what you're saying there. One of our core tenets in storytelling is understanding this, that companies tend to sell solutions to, external problems, right? That's what we think. We have this preconceived notion of what that is, the surface issues, but customers typically buy solutions to internal problems. In other words, those deep fears that they might have or frustrations that they may be experiencing. There's something internal that they're having a problem with, and but people companies try to sell to the external problem, not the internal. And so if you can understand that a little bit, and kind of, and it varies case by case, person by person, but if you could really get to that deeper understanding of what internally is driving them, then you've got something there.
Well, if you think about it from a psychological perspective too, any time in my life that I've had a problem and I think that the person who can solve that problem is who I'm talking to, I simply want to be heard. I want them to hear
Yes.
my problem.
Yep.
That's the lifeline I'm looking for. And too many
Mhm.
times
Yeah.
we're in a sales call and we don't give them that courtesy. We
Mm.
completely miss that. But if you put yourself
Mm.
in that prospect's shoes and realize you're there because they know they have a problem, you
Mm.
may not even know what it is yet, but they
Mm.
in their mind have believed enough that you may be able to solve that for them, that they've invited you in to talk to
Mm.
them. And it's up to you at that point to figure out what it is. That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I love the methodologies that Chris Voss talks about in Never Split the Difference, in what
Exactly.
he went through as a hostage negotiator for the
Mm.
FBI, because
Mhm.
you learn how to draw that information out of them.
Yep.
Because even though they have you there, even though they have the problem, they're still going to be somewhat guarded until you can get that trust, and you get that trust through empathy and
Yes.
in letting them know that they can open up and trust you with it. And you do that by, number one, getting them to talk, which he teaches mirroring and all the other stuff. But to me, the most important part is labeling, in labeling that you understand what they're saying. And, I think that's one of the biggest things that salespeople in general make. One of the biggest mistakes they make is not labeling people
Mm.
correctly. And
Mm.
it's a simple shift in thought process from I hear, I see, I feel to it sounds like, it looks like, it feels like. Because when you say I in any sales
Mm.
conversation, you have now turned it back on you, and you're going to
Exactly.
shut that person down. So I
Mm.
think that, from a standpoint of being there to be that lifeline, we need to listen and let those people tell us what the problem is, but then we need to affirm that we heard what they said and we understand what they say, so that they continue to give us more information. What intrigues me about your process, and I mean, I've read Donald Miller and I understand
Yeah.
StoryBrand and all of that stuff,
Mhm.
but I think that a lot of people don't really. West Virginians, storytellers all day long. People
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Alabama, storytellers all day long. That's what helps people relate to you, though. If you have
Mm.
the stories you can tell, that's way more important than features and benefits, because if you don't have the human connection first, you can forget the professional. Nobody's going to do business with somebody they don't like.
Amen. I couldn't agree more. And I love the fact that you mentioned the word empathy, because that's a large part of what we teach in storytelling in our process is, you know, we talk about you mentioned the word trust also. People are going to trust you if they kind of know you a little bit. You're there in front of them, they like you, maybe you have some rapport. But really, when you can express that empathy, I get where you're coming from, I've been there, kind of thing. But also weaving in that the authority, right? So when we talk about the customer is the hero of the story, and the company that you're representing, if it's commercial insurance or if it's a marketing agency like myself, I am trying to build that authority, that subject matter authority, in a way that is not boastful, but is more of a humble approach. But they understand, I hear them, I see them, I feel what they're going through. I've been there, I've experienced that myself. I've had other clients that have experienced that. But over the last, 36 years, here's how I've helped people overcome that. Yeah.
100%. One of my favorite things to say in a sales conversation, when I feel like somebody's not opening up and giving me the full story, because
Yeah.
maybe they don't have that level of trust quite
Mm,
yet,
mm.
is sounds like you've been burnt before.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened when we ran into this exact same situation with ABC Company, who we already know is their competitor, and we work with them.
Mm,
And now we can tie it back to, okay, these guys are already working with them. If they're working with them, I can probably give them a little bit more on the trust meter. Then, as you tell the story, without obviously giving away your other clients' trade secrets, but you
mhm,
talk about what that experience was like. If they're friendly competitors, you know dang well they're going to pick up the phone and call the other person, which gives you even more trust. And if you've done your job right, that person's not going to have a problem taking that phone call and being an advocate for you. But again, we go to features and benefits like, oh, I can get you the best premium, or I can get you more coverage, or let me look at your policies and make sure you don't have gaps. People, if
mm,
you're in the insurance industry, let me give you a news flash that you probably haven't heard, or maybe you have if you listen to the podcast enough. People don't care about their coverage. I mean, they do, but at the end of the day, us going in and asking to compare their coverage to make sure there's no gaps, you're having to create pain in a situation where there may already be different pain and you just haven't uncovered it.
mm.
If somebody hasn't had an uncovered insurance claim as a result of a coverage gap, you're still going to have to move a mountain to get them to break the trust of the person they're already doing business with and come do business with you when it's never been an issue before. You're going to have to make that into an issue, and it becomes a very, very difficult sales conversation. So features and benefits, as opposed to getting them to tell you and then giving them an example, telling them you heard, and then giving them an example of how you solved this same problem or a problem, if they haven't given you theirs yet, with one of their competitors, is going to get them to open up and eventually give you the key to the gold.
Absolutely, David. Most people are trying to avoid a tragic ending, whatever that is, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their personal life. They don't want to fail, right? How can you bring them to more success, to more favorable outcomes, to whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. So I think having an understanding, the empathy, I think, is very important. Weaving in the authority and subject matter, expertise is extremely important. But you hit the nail on the head. Telling a compelling story that backs that up is so much better than shooting out some random percentages.
100%. So you guys have put together a really cool process, but then you've also made it very easy for you to interface with the average business who, let's face it, man, ChatGPT is like, in my opinion, I'm interested in yours, but I have said this several times, and you and I have both been alive at a really cool time, because
Absolutely.
we have seen technology just go nuts in our lifetime. I mean, I've always had a genuine respect for the elderly, and specifically my maternal grandmother, God bless her, who passed away a couple years ago in her early 90s, from Fairmont, by the way,
Oh, yeah.
Fairmont, West Virginia,
Yeah.
20, 30 minutes down the road from Morgantown.
Yep.
But she saw so much. She was born in the Depression and came through, and she just saw
Mm,
life change so
mm.
much over her lifetime. Arguably, we've seen that kind of advancement in our lifetimes, or even a subset of our lifetimes, to be honest. And I think ChatGPT and what's going on with generative AI right now is probably the biggest transformation of tech since the internet itself, in my opinion.
100% believe that to be true. Yes, I've been preaching that for a while now, right? Since really the beginning of 2023, when everything was kind of rolling out. I can give you a little background, David, if you're interested in
Sure.
hearing something about this, because we have this in common. You attended West Virginia University back in November of 2022. I was approached by the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. Sarah Biller at the time was running this organization called Vantage Ventures, which created tech startups inside the university. And of course, we're a Big 12 university situated here in the Pittsburgh
Basically,
market.
it was like a tech incubator inside the
Tech,
college at that point.
exactly, tech
Got it. Okay.
incubator.
Yeah, we have a ton of them down here that I'm
It-
actually involved with at this point.
all right, amazing. So you get this. Well, she said, Jim, I know that you had been interested in trying to create a piece of software that could help automate some of your internal processes to better help your customers. I thought of you. We got this new initiative starting up in January, and we wanted to see if you would be interested in it. So she kind of explained it. So I got connected with a fellow named Kerry Landis, and he had started and ramped up and exited several tech companies. He was leading an initiative that in January of 2023, they were going to launch 10 SaaS applications in 10 weeks, which is kind of an unheard of thing. Ideation to minimally viable product, MVP, in 10 weeks. I said, wow, that sounds pretty cool. He said, what's your idea? I said, well, I just have been hearing about OpenAI and ChatGPT and generative AI coming onto the market. This was in November of 2022, and he said, yeah, it's going to be transformative. And I said, well, we've got this story process, and what I would like to do is take my story process in the art framework and story arc and utilize generative AI to build, some really cool content. And he said, well, that's great. And I said, well, let me tell you why I'm interested in this. I said, the problem that I am in love with right now is helping people find their words to market their business. Okay. I don't care if you're a commercial insurance agent, or if you're a muffler shop, or you're a healthcare agency. Everybody struggles with this, in my humble opinion. You get
no, you're 100% on point, man.
Give me your 30-second pitch,
Yeah. And the thing is, like, we run into this in insurance, even because if you're an outside producer, you have one like product offering, value proposition, or whatever, and you think everybody's going to receive that information the same way. And that's not the case. You have to meet people where they want to be met. And
yes,
and what triggered my thought was when you said muffler shop, we have a specialty where we'll go after auto body, auto shops, things like that. And I had a producer that was not having success. And I'm like, tell me how you're going in. And it was the normal shtick that you would expect from an insurance person or any salesperson. I'm like, let's step back and get a 10,000 foot overview here. How do these people buy? Who else do they buy from? Well, they buy from Advanced Auto Parts, and they buy from Seaboard Newman, and they buy from the Snap-on tool guy. And I said, what do those people all have in common? And they missed it. And I said, they're there every month. They're route salespeople.
Yep.
They're predictable. They already have a base, and they're going in and trying to get those people to buy more. You coming in as somebody 30 days before renewal does not fit the framework of who they usually meet with.
Love it.
So instead of going in and telling them that you're who you work for and what you do, say, hey, I'm the new territory rep for Florida Risk. I'm going to stop by every month and check in. And when I do, I'm going to bring you some information that is probably going to be of value to you. Just wanted to give you a quick intro as to who I am, so I'm not a stranger when I come in next time. Leave it at that. Go back the next month. I said, don't wear a suit and tie, khakis and a polo, and you're going to make forward progress. Guess what? 2, 3, 4 months down the road, everybody knows who the guy is now.
I love it, man. Yeah, that's awesome. And so, to kind of continue on that story, I said, how do I apply to get in this cohort? He's like, I love the idea you're in. You don't even have to apply. So we launched into it, and I start, ChatGPT, the early iteration comes out in November 2022, where I'm all over it. I'm experimenting. I spent Christmas break. Our team takes a week off or so, and I'm here in my office on the conference table with 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, showing how this is going to framework. I'm taking screenshots of it, sending it to the developers. We start in January on this 10-week journey. About halfway in, my product, the SaaS application that we're creating, was to the point where I could test it. And there's about 35 people from all across the country and in India where our developers were. John Chambers, by the way, funded the whole initiative, which was pretty cool. But I hit make my story for the first time, David. And it was amazing. Like, I had this database of my business and this framework of a story. It sends it to ChatGPT, brings it back, flows it through our framework, and created this 30-second pitch. And as I'm reading it out loud, I could not believe like what had just happened. I didn't have to write a prompt. I just hit make my story. And everybody on the call was like, what just happened? This was amazing, right? We've got something here. So long story short, we launched the product out into the world on May 1st, 2023. And now we have subscribers all over the country using StoryMaker. And the thing that makes us different is I know you guys have talked on the podcast before. I follow you guys, and you've talked about ChatGPT and writing the perfect prompt, and how machine learning understands your business, and it knows you just as you can't even decipher, David, if you wrote something or ChatGPT wrote it, right? Well, that's the same thing with StoryMaker, but the cool thing is it's based on a database, and so you can create your business, right, in terms of the database, but all your products and services. You could have a content piece that is aimed at auto parts or auto repair shops, right? Like we just kind of talked about, and how be able to talk their language and so forth. And you can create instant 30-second pitches, sales emails. I use the sales email tool every day to write, at least get me started. I may use 95% of it and maybe tweak it a little bit, but it understands my tone of voice. It understands who I am and creates amazing content. You can create blog posts with it, media releases. You have a new product or service you want to, or a new employee joining your firm. You can send out a media release to a trade publication. It writes it in Associated Press AP style. It's an incredible tool. Social media posts, and it goes on and on. Custom content as well. I have a great success story for it. It's not a commercial insurance rep, but I have a guy who sells supplemental benefit insurance. He's one of our heaviest users. He was a beta tester, and now he uses it every day to create content. And it's incredible because this guy's not a writer. He doesn't know how to write really great emails. And quite honestly, he's not a very good speller, or, he doesn't have good grammar skills.
Join the club.
But now it just in a few seconds, he's able to generate content for his LinkedIn page, for his social, his Facebook page, for his blog. It's incredible. And it's like, wow, this guy, he gets it. And it's so easy. Whereas, ChatGPT, the plus is like $20 a month. Our software is $15.99 a month. And it includes all the latest features, including ChatGPT 4.0.
That's awesome. And I think here's the thing, man, this is my rub with ChatGPT, not necessarily ChatGPT, but with the average user. A, it's not a search engine. And B, it's not generating content in your voice if you haven't taught it to do that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
People want to go in, they want to take the easy way out, and they want to create blog content, social posts, whatever, but they don't take time to train the language model in your voice and how to do that. And that, to me, is a major issue, because that creates a disconnect between you and the prospect when they've come to you based on some sort of an inbound strategy from content they've consumed online, and now they're talking to you, and your voice is not the voice that originally resonated with them.
Yeah.
They have to have that. You have to have that connection. That is the crux of content marketing, in my opinion. Yeah. And that's why it works so well, specifically if you're doing like long form blog content and things like that. My best leads are people who hit a call to action in a 2,000 word blog post that I wrote on something that is like the experience modification factor for workers' compensation. If you read that entire thing and you reach out to me, you already know that I know what I'm talking about. Exactly. And you know that I'm likely the solution or a solution to your problem. I need to be the same person on the other end of the phone that is who wrote that article or told that story. And I think that's where people, they really mess up is, they want to take the easy way out and think, oh, I can do this blogging stuff, or I can, do this content marketing. I got ChatGPT now, and they're probably doing more damage than they're doing good.
Absolutely. You're talking about an authentic voice is what you're talking about.
100%.
And the thing that I like about, the tool that we created, it's kind of neat because we use this. We have on average 50 to 60 clients a month that we're creating content for. We're a small agency, 10-person operation here in West Virginia. But we're using the tool every day on my team. That's how we're starting the content generation piece. And instead of sitting down, to a blank screen, you've got StoryMaker that generates the initial idea. Then, I very, very seldom say, hey, you can just use this as it is. It's perfect, right? When I mentioned, I'm using 95 to 98% of it or whatever, that's the key to it. You got to, as good as generative AI is, as good as machine learning is, you still have to, I think, make it authentic, make it yourself, and add that little extra in there. And personally, StoryMaker is just like it uses ChatGPT 4.0 right now as the backbone, and it is machine learning. It is helping with that. It's using our story arc and story framework, but it's also learning your tone of voice. When you're generating and you're saving those pieces, it's learning all that. So I think it is becoming more and more authentic. I think you mentioned it's in terms of technology, the biggest innovation ever. I think that as well, and we're just scratching the surface. I mean, this thing's
Well,
only
I mean,
been
look at
out.
how far it's come since November of 22 to now. Like, it's insane.
I know. It's
even
insane.
the last
Yeah.
year, the differences.
I
Like, I can go through and use it for, like, if I go, let's just say I go in and I do talk about return to work, for example, a return to work program for an employer, and I do an hour-long podcast on that. And then what I've done is I've been able to take the transcription of that and upload that into ChatGPT and get it to, it can create a blog post for it. It can give me the summary of it, obviously, but I've also used it to create charts and graphs to insert into like storylines for what the process looks like, using, I don't know if it's Dolly that it's using or whatever product inside the suite of services it is, but like, we've created some really awesome marketing slicks that are 100% in my tone, based off of just uploading everything into 4.0 and then giving it the prompts to do that. And then all we have to do is take it and put it into Canva or Publisher or whatever we're using for our graphics at that time, brand it, and we've got a really powerful piece of marketing material that tells you exactly what you can expect if that's what your problem is.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's an efficiency tool. Obviously, time is money, and being able to create content like that is very powerful, provided that it's accurate and it's authentic, right? Just the same
100%.
thing we're talking
Otherwise,
about.
it's like me trying to tell your story. Like, how good is that going to go over?
Right, exactly. And I think the other thing, I'll just mention another little feature which actually is a big feature of StoryMaker, is it is a complete library, a repository of every piece of content that you've ever created. You can customize it. You can custom name it. If you have a blog post that is converting at a high rate, you can actually go in and make notes in that inside of StoryMaker. One of the things that I found, and this may be something that might be interesting to your audience, David, is, I just to give you an example, I have a structural engineer client that uses StoryMaker basically every day, and they have a virtual assistant that doesn't even live in the same state. And a lot of people have this where they're creating content, maybe an email, or it may be an email response, it might be a blog post, it might be some social media content. When that virtual assistant moves on to another role, the database is still there. So you have an archive of everything that's been created, and this could be for years, right? We've been we launched this in May 1st, 2023. But the point is that you have this historical library of content. It's not just in some stream on ChatGPT. It's actually in the cloud on a secured database. So that's kind of a neat thing too, just to have that archive of everything that you're creating.
I think that what you're doing is incredibly cool. I mean, I hate to dumb it down to that kind of a term, but the reality is, man, you're solving a problem that a lot of people face, and unfortunately, I feel like they look at this as the Staples easy button, and they don't realize how much damage they're actually doing. But you actually created the easy button that's doing it the right way, is how I would describe that, right? And people need that messaging, and even from getting into phone scripts and messaging when you go to introduce yourself at a meeting and preparing for a meeting or a marketing drop or whatever else. I think that's a huge benefit to them. And I mean, I don't really want to, I've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, but I mean, one of the most elementary ways that I have just used ChatGPT as it is, without taking the time to build something as awesome as what you have, is making sure I can get my message across to my audience because my voice, not all the time, is what they need to hear. And what I mean by that is,
Mm.
I've got a lot of letters behind my name that tell you I know what I'm doing in insurance and risk management at this point. I can
Yeah.
be overly technical when I'm talking. I could lose you if I wasn't aware of this. I could lose you at the point of sale because I go into all the intricacies of how the experience modification factor is calculated and why you need to have a light duty program to get somebody back to work so that you could have a 70% reduction on the primary. I mean, you see where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I can take a complex insurance problem, type it in to ChatGPT and say, please rewrite this at a 6th grade reading level so that my audience can understand it. And boom, it'll spit something out. And I probably need to tweak it a little bit. But I'm like, why can't I think like that? Like, why
Yeah.
couldn't I dumb my own message down? And it's not that people are stupid. It's that people don't understand technical insurance concepts unless you're in the industry.
Yeah.
And we're such a tight-knit industry. Most of the time, all the friends we're talking to are in the industry with us. So that's the language we speak. But when we go talk to a prospect, it's not. And we lose people there. The other thing that I've used it for that has really, really helped me is if somebody gets me irritated in an email and I want to fire back at them real quick, I'm going to get myself in trouble. So if I get the satisfaction of typing my reply into something and getting it out, but then I could say, please reword this to make it a professional response to a fairly contentious email. And boom, it's going to give me something.
That,
It's going to give me a much
absolutely.
better response.
You just nailed something, because I think that is that's one of my personal pain points, is that when I get those emails that require, I look at it and I say, man, that's got to take me 20 minutes to respond to that thing. Right. And we built that into StoryMaker too. We have an email responder. You just take the message and then you give it a prompt inside. It says, respond respond yes to this. And it'll, with your tone of voice, talking about it's speaking on your business behalf because it knows you, right, in the history, and it spits it out and it puts it in an archive that you could use that again if you wanted to. It's easy to find. But I love responding to emails that way. Now, again, I'm always quick to say, first of all, read it before you hit send.
Yeah, no kidding.
But also, edit it, tweak it a little bit, make it your own, but instead of being 20 minutes, it might take me a minute and a half.
100%.
That's massive.
And I do need to caution everybody, my ChatGPT knows my voice. Like, I have invested a lot of time and energy in making sure of that. So, just because I'm doing that and it works for me, even when it waters things down or whatever, it still has a bit of my tone in it.
Yes.
So if you've not taken the time to teach the learn language model how it needs to reply, don't just think you're going to get a great response right out of the box. There's a process there. And again, I would tell you that Jim and his firm have taken a lot of the learning curve and flattened that out for you. And in this industry, like, I'm shocked when you tell me what your price point is, because in our industry, time is money. There's no sense in look, agents, your producers, you're supposed to be focusing on top line revenue, not trying to understand learn language models and how to build them, right?
Exactly.
I do it because it's a hobby, it's a passion, it's something I like. One of my degrees is in marketing. I just like it for that reason. It's not my primary job. I just happen to like to fill my spare time with learning about this stuff and doing it. You shouldn't do that unless it's a passion of yours. But if it's something you struggle with, which you likely do, I don't know how your time has to be way more valuable than the monthly subscription fee that you charge for somebody to be able to go in and push a couple of buttons and get a realistic response.
Yeah. And so we originally built this for ourselves, so we could become more efficient with our clients. And then we said, hey, why don't we just offer this to everybody? Not everybody can afford interaction media at, $8,000 to $10,000 a month, but they can afford $15.99 a month, to create content, because we do a lot of video, and we didn't even talk about how you can use this for video scripts and things of that nature. But, I boil it down to this, David, the words that we use cause people to either buy our products or services or not. And I think we've kind of identified that in the last couple of minutes in this conversation. So getting those words right is what I'm all about, and helping people, create the words to talk about their brands, to talk about their own personal brand or the companies that they represent, and doing it in a way that is going to not just communicate, but connect with people.
Man, I don't know of a better way for us to end unless you think there's something that
I
we've
think it's
missed.
great. This has
Is
been
there any is
fun.
there anything that we haven't talked about other than how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, my company is Interaction Media, and that's INNERACTION media.com. That's our website. You can find StoryMaker there. StoryMaker, if they're interested in that, and even having a call with me, they can log on and have a demo. It's storymakerapp.us. But those are the two easiest ways. And I'm on LinkedIn. Love to connect and talk with people and just share the message of how stories should connect with people, not just communicate.
I just sent you a very generic connection request because there's no reason for me to send a note with it now that we know each other. So
That's
I
awesome,
just
man.
clicked it to make sure we were connected on there because I do look forward to following you as you continue to grow this. Because if there's anything at all that either of us know about the last couple of years, is we could have this same conversation 6 months from now and it's going to be even more like, who knows, man, what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
sincerely, thank you for spending some time
Yes.
coming on. This was, to be completely transparent with you, a very pleasant surprise for me.
Awesome.
Um, I get a lot of people that, have podcast booking services and stuff that reach out, and it's like the right hand isn't talking to the left. I always tell them these are great guests. I try my best to draw parallels. And when I read your one pager, I knew like I need to get this guy on here because this does have a direct application in translation to the insurance industry. But even when I do that, they don't always turn out the best. And this has been a very refreshing conversation that I
Yeah.
think a lot of people will have enjoyed listening to. So a
Well,
sincere
David,
thank you for me for that.
you made it very easy, and I enjoyed connecting with you. And let's go Mountaineers.
Let's go, man. Let's go. All right. We'll talk to you later. Everybody else, we'll catch you next week. See ya.
Thanks, David.